Mondays at 5:30 p.m. Lil'Amma and 6:30 p.m. for Prophet. And every Monday we have Divine from the Last Testament, Divine Wisdom from the Last Testament at 7 p.m. And we also have Story with the Prophet every Thursday at 7 p.m. And we also have Islam 101 every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. And we also have the art of reciting the Holy Quran every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. And we also have Quran, Arabic classes. To find much more about today's lesson, you can find it on your website.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wa salatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursalin sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Welcome again to those who had gone on vacation. We're happy to have you back, and welcome again to those who have been always with us. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. May Allah bless you all. So today we are talking about Yusuf being appointed as a minister, and actually said before, when the king met with him when he came from the jail, and when it was well established that Yusuf was innocent, he was unfairly imprisoned, so the king loved him and trusted him a lot. And Yusuf, and due to the fact also that when the king wanted his dream to be interpreted, Yusuf didn't set any preconditions. He just went ahead and interpreted the dream. So the king was intrigued with that, and he loved him, he trusted him a lot, and finally he appointed him a minister, and we will see what happened. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ ائْتُونِي بِهِ أَسْتَخْلِصُهُ لِنَفْسِي فَلَمَّا كَلَّمَهُ قَالَ إِنَّكَ الْيَوْمَ لَدَيْنَا مَكِينٌ أَمِينٌ قَالَ اجْعَلْنِي عَلَى خَزَائِنِ الْأَرْضِ إِنِّي حَفِيظٌ عَلِيمٌ وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ يتبوأ منها حيث يشاء نصيب برحمتنا من نشاء ولا نضيع أجر المحسنين ولأجر الآخرة خير للذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون. So we will be talking about this word muhsinin. It's always mistranslated, and of course we can't blame the translators because Arabic is very deep. So the translation here said it goes, so the king said, bring Yusuf to me, I will appoint him as an advisor for myself. So when the king spoke to him, he said, indeed from this day you are well established and well trusted with us. Yusuf said, appoint me a high minister over the treasures of the land. I am a good keeper and knowledgeable. And thus did we establish Yusuf in the land to proceed independently wheresoever he so willed. We bestow our mercy upon whomever we so will. And never do we allow anyone's reward of those who excel in doing good deeds to be lost. Yet, most surely, the reward of the hereafter is far better for those who believe and fear. So we're talking about the word muhsin. It's always translated as excel in doing good deeds, but it's more than that. Ihsan is a topic by itself, but in brief, it's divided into three levels. So level one is al-ihsan fil qasd. In other words, you have good intentions, but that's not enough. So you have to adorn your good intention with knowledge. So for example, you want to pray, the niyyah isn't enough. You have to know how to pray. You want to fast, you have to learn how to fast. So the intention should be beautified, should be adorned with knowledge, and should be strengthened with a strong resolve. Do not procrastinate. You have an intention of doing something, don't say, I will do it tomorrow, and you should purify your heart from all ulterior motives. So all these apply to Yusuf alayhi salam. So people did wrong to him, he was unfairly imprisoned. Although he was languishing in the jail, he was doing good to the people over there, he was only expecting the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So ihsan also to care about someone, anticipating nothing from that person. So that's what Yusuf was doing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that He will not allow the reward of those who selfishly do good deeds, who treat others well. He won't allow the reward to be lost. You might face some challenges today and tomorrow, but finally you will emerge victorious. So when it became clear to the king that Yusuf was innocent, he said, bring him to me, I will employ him as my advisor. So the king went ahead to employ Yusuf alayhi salam as his advisor. And he was a member of those of his inner circle, those advisors, the select advisors of the king, and those people who were distinguished and notable. So when Yusuf was finally taken to the king, who discussed with him some matters, after which he was so much impressed by him, he said finally, the king said, this day you are high in rank with us and fully trusted. So after that, after Yusuf got from a prison, as it goes, he took shower and he went straight to the. So Yusuf wanted to appear very well, well dressed, well looking good in front of the king. And of course, if you combine both good behavior, good appearance, good manner, sincerity, so you impress the person even more. So now, why did Yusuf actually, according to the verse that we recited before, Yusuf asked to be appointed a minister? So the reason why? So Yusuf asked to be appointed in charge of the country's storehouses because he expected a severe famine that will strike that land after 7 years. So he wanted to take a good care of the people during those difficult times. He described himself as a good keeper of trusts as well as a competent and capable administrator. So Yusuf alayhi salam, in interpreting the dream of the king, he knew that tough times are ahead. And no one will come up with a solution to the problem better than him. So here, he's suggesting to the king to appoint him, or he's asking the king to appoint him not to his own benefit, because he wants to benefit the people. He trusts himself and he knows he has the ability and competence on carrying out the duties that that position will entail. So as he wanted to be appointed a minister in charge of the economy of the treasures because he was competent and a capable administrator. So verse 55 of chapter 12, Surah Yusuf, is a clear evidence that it is allowed in Islam to seek power and control if one trusts himself in competence, efficiency, and trustworthiness. So if you know you are a competent person, you are trustworthy, you are sincere, you don't have any ulterior motives, and you know if you are appointed to a certain position, you will serve the people better, then it's allowed in Islam for you to seek that position, to request to be appointed in that position. Otherwise, if you don't trust yourself, then don't do that. Now let's share some narrations of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قال أبو ذر الغفاري رضي الله عنه قلت يا رسول الله ألا تستعملني؟ قال فضرب بيده على منكبي ثم قال يا أبا ذر إنك ضعيف وإنها أمانة وإنها يوم القيامة خزي وندامة إلا من أخذها بحقها وأدى الذي عليه فيها. So the Prophet ﷺ, according to Abu Dharr narrated thus, I said, so Abu Dharr, one of the bona fide companions of the Prophet, wanted the Prophet to appoint him to an official position. So he says, Abu Dharr says, I said, O Messenger of Allah, will you not appoint me to an official position? So will you not give me a high position or some responsibility of some sort so that I can be responsible over some people or carry out some duties? So he said, Abu Dharr said, the Prophet patted my shoulder with his hand and said, O Abu Dharr, you are weak and leadership is a trust. And on the day of judgment, it will be a cause of humiliation or regret, except for one who fulfills its obligations and discharges the duties it entails. So the Prophet ﷺ knew his companions very well. He knew what they were capable of and what they were not capable of. So it didn't matter how much you were related to him, how much you were loyal to him. If you were not suitable for a position, he wouldn't appoint you for that position. So the Prophet ﷺ tells Abu Dharr openly and frankly, he says, you are weak. And this is a huge responsibility. And actually, in advising him thus, the Prophet ﷺ was kind to Abu Dharr. So can anyone tell us how he was kind? So Abu Dharr wants to be appointed in an official position, in a high position, to be a responsible person. So the Prophet says, you are weak, you are not capable of executing the duties that that position entails. So the Prophet ﷺ is warning him and telling him, if you do not carry out the duties that the position you were given entails, this will be a cause of humiliation on the day of judgment. So what do we learn from this? Abu Dharr tells the Prophet ﷺ tells Abu Dharr, you are not suitable for that position because you are weak. So what do we learn from this? So you give position, and actually it's not only a matter of qualification. You know, we always say that knowledge isn't enough. If you are a knowledgeable person, you need to be wise and you need to be well behaved. If you are knowledgeable and you're not wise, you will cause chaos. If you are knowledgeable, wise, but not well behaved, you will cause chaos. So someone might have the credentials of doing the job, but he doesn't have the virtues of carrying out the responsibilities that the job entails. So he isn't suitable for the position. So the Prophet ﷺ was not flattering anyone. He wanted people to do what they were capable of. And as we said, he was merciful and kind to Abu Dhar, because if he appointed Abu Dhar anyway, despite being a weak person, not suitable for the position, it will be a cause of humiliation for Abu Dhar. So the Prophet ﷺ is saving Abu Dhar this humiliation and problems on the day of judgment by denying him that position which he was looking for. So in this case, we're learning a lesson. If someone, for example, is your son, your relative, you know this person is not competent for the position. So presumably, because you feel you love them, you give it to them. This is blind love, because they will commit mistakes, they will mistreat people, and you, along with them, will be responsible on the day of judgment. So we should always look broadly. We should always get a broader picture of the things that we do. So you do something to someone, assuming you love him, yet it isn't love. You're causing problems to that person. So this shows that the Prophet ﷺ really loved the welfare of his companions. So the Prophet says Abu Dhar is weak, but Yusuf is requesting to be appointed, which means Yusuf was competent, he trusted himself, and he has gone through a lot of experience from which he learned. So he wants to do something, and actually in such a situation, not only is it allowed, it's compulsory. And this is why we always tell people that, for example, someone has made a lot of money, and he says, you know, I have enough for myself and my family, I can now retire. We say, no. If you have the know-how, the knowledge, continue working. You're not working only for your family, you're not working only for your friends, you're working for the entire Muslim community and for the entire mankind. So if you know that if you retire, no one will be capable of executing your duties, so you're required to go ahead to continue benefiting human beings. Because according to the hadith, as we said before, the Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُ النَّاسِ أَنْفَعُهُمْ لِلنَّاسِ. The best among people is the best in terms of benefiting them. So the more you benefit others, the more you become dearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is also another hadith that was narrated by Abdul Rahman ibn Samra, in which he said, the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advised me thus. So one of the bona fide companions of the Prophet, by the name of Abdul Rahman ibn Samra, is telling us that the Prophet ﷺ advised him thus. What did he say? He said, "O Abdul Rahman ibn Samra, do not ask for authority." In other words, do not ask to be appointed in a position. Do not ask to be appointed in an office for which you don't have credentials, for which you are not capable of executing its duties. For if it's granted to you at your request, then you will be left alone with it without Allah's support. So you are not competent, you're not capable of executing the duties that that position entails. You go ahead insisting to be given that position. The Prophet ﷺ says, you will be left alone. Allah will not help you. But if you are appointed to it without asking, then you will be helped by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Moreover, when you take an oath to do something and then find something better, expiate for breaking your oath and do what is better. So the Prophet ﷺ here was advising Abdul Rahman, if you aren't capable of doing a job, don't look for it, don't ask for it, don't request it. Because if you do, if they give it to you, then Allah will leave you to depend on it. But if they appoint you in a position without you asking for it, then Allah will help you. But in the case of Yusuf, he was capable of doing that. He was trustworthy. People loved him. So he wanted to use this position, this love that the people had for him, this trust, to execute his duties, not for him, but in order to solve the problems and to help his fellow human beings. So it is said that Yusuf was 30 years old at that time, and that the king addressed him in several languages, to which he responded properly. So when the king Yusuf appeared in front of the king, and the king started talking to him, breaking the ice, so he addressed him in many languages, and in whatever language the king was speaking to Yusuf, Yusuf would respond properly. In other words, Yusuf was a multilingual person. He knew many languages. So can we talk about some benefits of knowing many languages? Being a multilingual, knowing more than one language? What are the benefits? Especially if you are a da'iyah doing da'wah, presenting Islam to non-Muslims, you ought to know more than one language. It will help you a lot. What are other benefits of knowing more than one language? Any ideas? Yeah, it will be easier for you to communicate with different people. And actually, if you are in a problem in a host country or in a strange country, and if you speak the language of the people of that country, it will make it easier for you. I will just give an example without mentioning countries. I went to a certain country, I will not mention the name. So they had told me that if you board a boat from the shore of the lake of that country to an island, you pay this amount of money. But when I reached there, I started speaking English, and they charged me more than what I was told. Actually, it was twice what I was told. Then when I switched, I started speaking their language. They told me to pay the same price, which I had been told by my friends. So I said, why? They said, oh, you made yourself stranger, you made yourself superior to us by speaking English. So in all, knowing more than one language is important. And if you go you visit another country, it's very advisable to learn the language of the host country. It will help you a lot. For example, in Kuwait, you can get by with Arabic. With English. But if you get involved in a car accident and you refer to a police station, you don't know Arabic, it will be a problem. So there are some situations whereby Arabic will help you. There are some situations whereby English will help you. All in all, knowing more than one language is very important. So one of the things that made the king get impressed by Yusuf was because he knew many languages, so the king trusted him that communication would be easy for Yusuf, communicating not only with the Egyptians, but with also people who were flocking into that country seeking for provisions, because the drought had struck many parts of the Middle Eastern countries. So those people in other countries, they would always resort to Egypt for provisions. So there are some opinions about the marriage of Yusuf, and actually we don't have a definite answer about whom Yusuf married, how many children he had. What we have are just opinions. We don't have any definite answer, and there is even a fatwa about this. So what does it mean? What did they say, scholars and historians? It was said that the king married off to Yusuf a great woman of high caliber. That's it. They didn't name him. Another opinion, maintained by As-Sa'labi and Ibn Ishaq, they narrated that the king discharged Iftar Qatfir, who was the high minister who had imprisoned Yusuf despite knowing that Yusuf was innocent. So who was the husband of Zaliha. So Qatfir was in charge of the treasures of Egypt at that time. So the king discharged Qatfir from his position and replaced him with Yusuf. It was also said that after the death of Qatfir, the king gave his former wife Zaliha in marriage to Yusuf, because that lady was somehow related to the king. So according to this opinion, Yusuf found her still virgin due to the fact that the high minister Qatfir was impotent. This is just an opinion. Now, in that context, it says that she, Zaliha, bore him, Yusuf, two boys, namely Ephraim and Mensur. So these are the sources of this story. Now, according to this website, wislamweb.net and vbtafsir.net, people in charge of this website, they tell us we should not focus much on this piece of story because it's neither mentioned in the Noble Quran nor in the Sunnah. Rather, it's among the stories of the children of Israel. So this story that Yusuf married Zaliha after some time, and then he took the position of her husband, and then she bore him two children. This is among the Israeliyat. Now, does anyone remember what the Prophet ﷺ told us about the stories of the children of Israel? He said, don't accept them as true and don't belie them. So you hear it, enjoy it, share it with others, but don't accept it as true or don't say it's a lie. So we just take it as it is. So here it was also said that the king trusted Yusuf very much, and the men and women of that community loved him dearly. So after they established that Yusuf was innocent, he was unfairly imprisoned, so all of them ended up loving Yusuf alayhi salam, and this is a very great achievement. So getting people, strangers to love you, this is actually a sign of Allah's love. There is a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in which he says, when Allah loves someone, he will announce to the angels that I have loved so and so. So you also love him. And he will also cast the love of that person in the hearts of the people. So this was a very big achievement for the people to love Yusuf alayhi salam. Probably he was loved more than the king. And this is a very, very big achievement. And actually, as a da'iyah, someone presenting Islam to get people to love you, this is a very big first step in getting them to understand what you talk and what you talk about, and to trust what you tell them. So among the strategies of doing dawah is to earn the love of the people that you are targeting before even saying anything about Islam. So you get them to love you, and there are many ways in which you can get the people to love you. So here I have some quotes before we continue. I say that justice is truth in action. Justice is truth in action. So what does it mean? Justice is truth in action. Any ideas about what you understand with regard to this quote? Justice is truth in action. So which means if you treat people fairly, you are actually implementing the truth. Believing in the truth is something, and implementing it is something else. So if you really want to implement the truth that you know and believe in, then you have to treat people fairly. And actually this is very important even when you are doing dawah, to treat people fairly. A lot of non-Muslims, they monitor your behavior. And we've heard a lot of comments from non-Muslims who say that you Muslims claim that there is equality and justice in Islam, but why do people focus on us, help us, and they forget their Muslim brothers? So if you really believe in justice, then practice it. So, and actually there is another one, another quote which says, the safety of the people shall be the highest law. The safety of the people shall be the highest law. So Yusuf alayhi salam wanted to be appointed in charge of the storehouses because he wanted to ensure that people got their fair share of the provisions. So he was working for the safety of the people. Because if you don't have something in your stomach, you can't be safe. How would you be safe when you don't know from where you will get your next meal? So Yusuf rules people fairly. Yusuf alayhi salam consolidated his power and authority in Egypt and ruled with justice that all the people loved him. So because he was just, and for some other reasons, all the people ended up loving him. So when people love you, if you are a da'iyah preaching monotheism, whatever you tell them, they will be in the receptive mood. And I have other quotes before I continue. Love is when the other person's happiness is more important than your own. So when you put forward the other person's happiness, you take care of them before your happiness, then people will end up loving you. So if you work hard in order to ensure that you provide for the people their needs, then these people will end up loving you. And also there is another one, we desire respect for the law, if we desire respect for the law, we must first make the law respectable. So the law of justice and fairness, Yusuf respected it, and of course he was a believer in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was a prophet. So when people saw in him this fairness, treating people equally, this was among the reasons they loved him. So according to this website, questionsonislam.com, the king's admiration of Yusuf increased. He asked Yusuf to reinterpret his dream. So Yusuf had already interpreted the dream of the king, but now the king wants him again to interpret the same dream. Yusuf reinterpreted the dream. Thereupon the king said, who is going to do the things that you mentioned? Yusuf regarded it as an important offer and thus said, if you appoint me over the storehouses of the land, I will take all kinds of measures to survive the drought and famine in the best way. You can rely on me. So the king asks Yusuf to reinterpret the dream. And Yusuf, after the king asks him to reinterpret the dream, he learns that this is an offer to him. So what do we learn from this? So the king, Yusuf had already interpreted the dream, and now the king asks him to reinterpret it, and then asks him who will implement what you've interpreted from the dream. Then Yusuf says, I'm ready. What do you learn from this? Any ideas? So the king, by asking Yusuf to reinterpret the dream, it doesn't mean he didn't trust Yusuf's interpretation, but he wanted to request him indirectly to be in charge. Because since you interpreted the dream, then you are more suitable for the position more than anyone else. Because it's your interpretation, and not only did you interpret the dream, but you also gave us the mechanisms, the solutions to the problems that will follow. So if you give us the solutions, so this means if you are given authority to do that, you will be the best person. So choosing the best person for the best position. And actually in some companies, for example, if you come up with an idea, they ask you to implement it. But the problem is, if things go wrong, they blame you. If they go right, someone else will take credit for it. So, but Yusuf alayhi salam was sincere in whatever he was doing. So here there is a quote: actions prove actions prove who someone is. Words just prove who they want to be. So actions prove who someone is. Words just prove what he wants to be. So you might say something, it proves what you want to be, but actions will prove really who you are. So Yusuf had said the words, and now it was time to implement the solutions by himself after being given the chance by the king. So the king accepted it gladly, more so because the high minister had died, and after his death, the economy of Egypt started to enter a crisis. So after Qutfir, according to this opinion, after Qutfir, the high minister who had unfairly imprisoned Yusuf, after he had died, the economy went into crisis. And now the savior after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was Yusuf alayhi salam. So everybody was complaining about the bad economic situation. Therefore the king became very glad when Yusuf displayed his unflinching willingness to work for him because he trusted him. So the king trusts Yusuf, and actually he doesn't ask him directly to do the job. So he goes around asking him to reinterpret the dream and asking him a rhetorical question, who will do the job? And actually the main aim, he wanted Yusuf alayhi salam to offer to do the job. So what do we learn from this? So using what they call equivocation in order to encourage someone to accept an offer without you ordering them directly. Why? Why didn't just the king say, okay, I trust you, I will appoint you to this position? Why did he just ask a question expecting Yusuf to say, yes, I will do the job? What do we learn from this? So if someone takes a responsibility, takes an initiative in doing something wholeheartedly without anyone forcing him to do it, he will do his best. But if you force him to do something, he will have the impression that he forced me, so he might not do the job very well. So it has to come from the person willing to do something. When it comes from him, and this is why actually they say those who are successful in management, whenever there is a problem, they brainstorm with people, they sit together. So when you come up with an idea, so this idea is attributed to you, and if it's a good one, they help you, they give you the tools to implement it, and if the results become, they get the unexpected results, they don't blame it to you, they take it wholeheartedly. In other words, what it means, when you decide to do something by yourself, you will do it wholeheartedly and you will do a good job. And this is one of the reasons, even when we talk to our kids, we should encourage them to do something rather than forcing it to them. So when they take the initiative that they will do it, they will try their best. So here, Yusuf was trusted, he took the job, the economy was in tatters because the high minister had died, and also they were expecting 7 years of drought and famine, so the king becomes happy because the person whom he trusts takes the job. And actually, Yusuf was a stranger in that land. He wasn't from that part of the world. So what do we again learn from this? So imagine this important position of providing provisions to the people is given to a person who is a stranger. He isn't from that land. But the king, because he wanted to save the people, he wanted everyone to benefit, he trusted the man, he gave him the position. What do we learn from this?
Shows the king was a very good leader.
Yeah, he was a very good leader in some aspects,
To
yes.
such an extent,
Mm.
he would choose the best man for the job rather than taking, nationality or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, we talked about this before. One of the reasons third world countries do not develop, one of the reasons, actually, we said not all of them, some of them, some parts of them, is they don't spot talent. And when they spot a talent in someone, they get threatened. But other countries, when they see a talent in you, they will give you everything that you want. They will polish the talent, and it will be a benefit for them. So the king didn't say he's not from us. Even the people didn't complain. How can a stranger hold such an important position? They all trusted him. They loved him. So this should be the way we treat people. How do we benefit from that person? We don't look at where he came from, what's his ethnicity, his gender. So long as we can benefit from that person, we support him with whatever we can. So now the state seal is given to Yusuf. So this is to show that it was a serious administration. So they had paperwork, stamps, authenticating whatever communication they wanted to share with others. So the seal was given to Yusuf. So according to this opinion, the king gave the seal of the state to Yusuf immediately. He also gave Yusuf a throne decorated with pearls and rubies as a gift. Then he gave him a crown to wear on his head. Looking at the throne, Yusuf said, "With it I will strengthen this state." He looked at the seal and said, the stamp, "With it I will fulfill the government duties." However, he did not like wearing the crown. He said, "The crown is something that is not worn by me or by my ancestors." So his ancestors, Yaqub, Ismail, Ishaq, Ibrahim, they didn't wear the crown. But he was happy with the throne and the seal. So what do we understand from this? So the throne, he says, after being given a throne as a gift, he looks at it and says, "With it I will strengthen the state." And when he looks at the seal, which we can call a stamp today, he says, "I will fulfill the government duties." So what do we understand from this? One of the things that we learn, when you give someone a responsibility, you have to give him the tools that will help that person to carry out his duties. For example, if you are a teacher in some schools, you go there, you are, for example, a science teacher, they don't have a curriculum. They ask you to devise one, yet they don't pay you for that. So here the king is teaching us that when you employ someone, give him all the tools he needs to execute the work. That's number one. Number two, throne. Why is the throne important?
Gives him official status.
So it gives you an official status and it gives you confidence. Actually, one of the reasons why when you give a speech, they set up a pulpit, probably on a higher ground, on a dais, or if you give khutbah, the pulpit is higher. Psychologically, this helps to give you confidence. Even though you don't know more than anyone else, but when you are there, higher than them, you feel you are confident. Not you are better than them, it gives you confidence to preach to them, to share with them your ideas without fear. So it's a psychological issue. So psychologically, the throne would help him that he's in position of power, and he's using the power not for himself, not to satisfy his ego, but to make sure that justice is fulfilled, to make sure that everyone is treated fairly. And actually, he's using this power to threaten any despot, to threaten any unjust person, that if you mistreat people, I have the power to curb your maneuvers. So, in other words, he wanted to use it for the sake of empowering the powerless and for the sake of fighting for those who were less privileged and to give each and everyone his rights. And regarding the seal, and of course we have scammers, we have fraud. So every communication, every letter needed a seal to prove that it was from Yusuf alayhi salam. So since they trusted him, any letter that would go out with a seal, then they would know that this is Yusuf. They would trust him, and they would do whatever he wanted them to do, and this would be to the benefit of the people. But he didn't wear the crown. So why didn't he wear the crown? Any answers? Yes, sister.
The crown is a sign of a monarch. He didn't see himself as a monarch.
Yeah, he didn't see himself as a monarch or a king, so he saw himself as an ordinary person taking that position to serve others. Yes, not to ask others to serve him. What else? Crown. his So his ancestors didn't wear them. So he didn't want to wear something which his ancestors didn't wear them. And he didn't see any benefit in it. And actually there is a debate in some countries. You know, in some countries, if you go to the court, you'll see some lawyers and judges wearing a white cap. I don't know how they call it. So they say, what does it affect? What effect does it have on my decision? Do I need to wear it on my head? So there is a debate. In any case, he didn't see any benefit in wearing the crown. His ancestors didn't wear it, so he didn't like to do that. So then he gave it back. After that, he sat on the throne and started to work officially as the minister in charge of the economy with extraordinary authority. Because the king told him, you're free to do whatever you want. I trust you. But Yusuf used this authority to serve people, not to enslave them. So after undertaking the duty of the Minister of the Economy, Yusuf took action immediately. He introduced some reforms in various sectors and found solutions to people's problems. The people liked his administration. He built big storehouses during the 7 years of abundance and stored cereals there. Drought and famine started in the 8th year. So people living in other countries also suffered, but the people of Egypt did not suffer much due to the precautionary measures taken by Yusuf. So first, because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and because of the precautionary measures taken by Yusuf, the people of Egypt were less affected than other countries, and people from other parts of that world would always resort to Egypt for supplies. So Yusuf distributed the wheat and the wheat that he had stored fairly to the needy. So he would store the wheat and some other cereals, and whenever people came who needed it, he would distribute it to them fairly. And the people living in the countries around Egypt started to resort to Egypt in large numbers because of drought and famine, and Yusuf would help all of them. Now, according to the Bible, Pharaoh took Joseph in high admiration. Now, when some scholars and historians, they say that Pharaoh was a title of any king that ruled Egypt. However, some Muslim scholars say that Pharaoh was a title of the king of Egypt during the time of Musa, because they say in the Quran, when Allah talks about the king during the time of Yusuf, he says Al-Malik. He refers to him as the king. But during the time of Musa, he refers to him as Fir'aun. So they say Fir'aun was a title of that king during the time of Musa. Whereas during the time of Yusuf alayhi salam, it was the king, not Pharaoh. So this was the sign. Actually, if you read through the Quran, when Allah talks about the king during the time of Yusuf, it's Al-Malik, وَقَالَ Al-Malik. But when he talks in the story of Musa alayhi salam, he refers to the king of Egypt as Pharaoh. So, yes, brother.
Was there any difference in the attitude between the pharaohs and the kings?
Yes. Actually, the attitude is. Yes, the attitude is that the Pharaoh, that title Pharaoh, is an arrogant person who claims to be a god. But this king during the time of Yusuf, although he was a tyrant in some ways, but there was some good in him. So by appointing, for example, Yusuf, giving him authority, the Pharaoh during the time of Musa couldn't do that. He would be threatened by Yusuf. He'd say, okay, kill Yusuf. This is a very clever person. He will take my throne from me. So they say the word Pharaoh has a negative connotation. And here the king, although he was a tyrant, but he has some good attributes, which helped also to save the community which he ruled. So, according to the Bible, Pharaoh took Joseph in high admiration and made him the in charge of the land of Egypt. He gave his signet ring to Joseph, a ring which doubles as a stamp, and dressed him in the robes of fine silk and put a gold chain around his neck. Now, as Muslims, could we believe that Yusuf wore clothes of silk, made of silk? Because according to Islam, a man is not allowed to wear clothes of silk, right? And a man is not allowed to wear gold. So Yusuf was the prophet and messenger of Allah. I don't expect him to have agreed to wear silk or chains of gold, because according to our Sharia, it's haram. So this is actually from the biblical point of view, and I just wanted to share it with you. So he had him ride on his other chariot. I have the pictures of chariots, and men shouted before him, "Make way!" He said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, but without your word, no one will lift hand or foot in all Egypt." So this is a sign of giving him full authority, to Yusuf alayhi salam. So Muhammad bin Ishaq, a prominent historian in Islam, said that the king of Egypt at that time was Al-Walid ibn Rayyan, as we said before, and that he reverted to Islam at the hands of Yusuf. Actually, this is just an opinion. We can't assertively claim that the king became a Muslim, but this is the opinion of Muhammad ibn Ishaq, that the king, because he trusted Yusuf, he loved Yusuf, he liked Yusuf, finally he became a Muslim, he became a believer. So it might be true, it might be wrong, we don't have anything to confirm this opinion. It's just an opinion. So Yusuf's brothers in Egypt. So now Yusuf is appointed a minister. The brothers who had wanted to kill him, who wanted to get rid of him, now they come to him. They don't know he's a minister yet. So their land was stricken with famine and drought. So they heard in Egypt there was a high minister who was very fair, who was giving provisions. So they also wanted to go in order to get provisions to go back to their land and feed their families. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that's about that. He says, وَجَاءَ إِخْوَةُ يُوسُف فَدَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ فَعَرَفَهُمْ وَهُمْ لَهُ مُنْكِرُونَ وَلَمَّا جَهَّزَهُم بِجَهَازِهِمْ قَالَ ائْتُونِي بِأَخٍ لَكُم مِّنْ أَبِيكُمْ أَلَا تَرَوْنَ أَنِّي أُوفِي الْكَيْلَ وَأَنَا خَيْرُ الْمُنزِلِينَ فَإِن لَّمْ تَأْتُونِ بِهِ فَلَا كَيْلَ لَكُمْ عِندِي وَلَا تَقْرَبُونَ قالوا سنراود عنه أباه وإنا لفاعلون وقال لفتيانه اجعلوا بضاعتهم في رحالهم لعلهم يعرفونها إذا انقلبوا إلى أهلهم لعلهم يرجعون. So the translation is, thereafter the brothers of Yusuf came to Egypt and approached him asking for provisions. He recognized them, but they didn't recognize him. So when he had supplied them with provisions, he said, bring me that brother of yours from your father whom you spoke of to receive his share. Do you not see that I have fully apportioned the measure of your provisions, and that I have been the best of hosts? But if you do not bring him to me, there shall be no more measure allotted for you with me, and you will never come near me again. They said, we shall convince his father to allow him to go out, and we will most surely act upon this request. He said to his servants, place their own merchandise back in their packs, so that they may recognize it when they go back to their families, so that they may return in hope of further aid. So Yusuf alayhi salam encouraged them to bring their half-brother, who was his full brother, Benjamin, whom they had left behind. And actually Yusuf and Benjamin, they were the most beloved sons to their father. So, and actually after Yusuf had left, Benjamin was also mistreated. So Yusuf told them to go and bring back the half-brother if they wanted to get enough measure, to get some more provisions the following year. And it was a mixture of threats and promises. If you bring him, I will give you more provisions and he will get his share. If you don't, I won't give you any provisions and you won't come near me. So it was a mixture of, it was a carrot and a stick, encouraging them to bring his full brother Benjamin to him. So, and even at this time, they didn't know. At that time, they were living in a place called Madian, this place here. So, from here to Egypt. So, As-Sudi, Muhammad ibn Ishaq, and several others said that the reason Yusuf's brothers went to Egypt is that after Yusuf had become a high minister in Egypt and the 7 years of abundance had elapsed, the 7 years of drought and poverty struck all areas of Egypt and reached the land of Canaan, so the land of Palestine today. So where Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam and his children lived. So the children of Yaqub had gone to Yusuf, and now Yusuf is telling them next time to bring their brother. So Yusuf alayhi salam efficiently collected and protected the people's harvests, and what he collected became a great fortune for them. This also permitted him to give gifts to the people who sought his aid from various areas, who approached him to buy food and provisions for their families. So actually this is giving us a precedent when they will come, and that was a verse of the Quran talking about the whole story. Now we are cutting it into pieces. So Yusuf would not give a person more than a camel's load as an annual provision for them. So Yusuf himself did not fill his stomach with that food, nor did the king and his aides eat except one meal a day. So Yusuf, the minister of economy, in charge of the treasures, would eat one meal a day. The king himself would eat one meal a day, and his aides would eat only one meal a day. So what do we learn from this? So the king himself, who has power over the land, Yusuf, who is in charge of the treasuries, is eating a meal a day. What do we learn from this? And actually, before we discuss this, there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. عن المقدام بن معدي يكرب رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: ما ملأ آدمي وعاء شرا من بطنه بحسب ابن آدم أكلات يقمن صلبا فإن كان لا محالة فثلث لطعامه وثلث لشرابه وثلث لنفسه. So the translation is, Al-Miqdam bin Ma'adi Yakrib narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, no man fills a container worse than his stomach. A few bites to keep him upright are sufficient for him. But if he has to, if you have to eat more, then he should keep 1/3 for food, 1/3 for drink, and 1/3 for breathing. So we go back. So why was Yusuf? No one was preventing him. The king had given him ultimate powers to do whatever he wanted in Egypt, to go wheresoever he wanted. The king himself had powers, but they were eating only one meal a day. So what do we learn from this?
He was practicing what he preached.
Practicing what he preached. So he was not just talking the talk, he was walking the talk. So you as a leader, if you want to convince people, if you want people to respect you and to do what you want, you have to be a role model to them. So you have to practice what you preach. So when they saw, the people saw Yusuf eating only one meal a day, and he is advising them to be economical during these tough times, they were happy. They were happy with that. But if he was eating to his fill, having more than 3 meals, and yet he's advising them to eat one meal a day, they wouldn't be happy. So to lead by example is very important. This is what prophets and messengers did, including Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How many days would he stay just being sustained by dates and water? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was capable of getting whatever he wanted, but he would only eat dates and water for some days. So what else do we learn? So the king, Yusuf, in charge of all the provisions, the Minister of Finance or Economy, whatever you call it, eats only one meal a day. And actually, the sister says he was leading by example. What else do we learn from this?
So you can be a healthy person.
So if you monitor your food, if you don't fill your stomach with food, it will help you to be healthy. And actually, some diseases we contract some diseases because of our diet and because of the amount of food that we eat. So what else? One meal a day. One meal a day. If you condition yourself to eating one meal a day, you can't die. So Yusuf didn't die. And actually, this is a lesson that when you are in a crisis, when you are in a problem, so you have to make some you have to make some sacrifices. So whether you are a king, whether you are a ruler, during tough times, make sacrifices. During good times, enjoy yourself. So when it's time to enjoy, enjoy. When it's time to sacrifice, sacrifice. As we said before, some people say that, I can't eat a lot because some refugees don't get their meals. No, when you have a chance, eat. When time comes, then you face the situation. So here,
But also, eating less is proven to increase efficiency.
yes,
So,
that's true.
Yes, there were times of austerity, but actually, as leaders, their efficiency was increased.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true. So let's come to the hadith. The Prophet says, just you eat a few bites to sustain you. But if the food is, if you enjoy the food, then make sure a third is for the food, a third for your drinks, and a third. So what does he mean? What does he allude to? And how can we measure a third for the food? How can we measure our stomachs? In other words, don't eat your fill. Some people eat a lot, they binge to the extent that they fail to breathe. So if you're reaching to a point of failing to breathe, this will affect you. So you eat something to sustain you, and this is good for your health. So not only is it economical, it's also good for your health. And actually, it's surprising, during Ramadan, when some people gain weight and suffer from some diseases, others say that, I was more active during Ramadan. I was stronger during Ramadan. So it depends on how you behave during Ramadan. Then by doing so, the people could sustain themselves with what they were given during the period of drought. In other words, being economical, not misusing the food, then people would sustain themselves during that time. Yusuf's brothers were among those who went to Egypt to buy food supplies by their father's order. So their father Yaqub ordered them to go to Egypt. They knew that the high minister of Egypt was selling food at low prices for the people who were in dire need of it. So they didn't know he was their brother. They knew that maybe their brother was either dead or he was somewhere working as a slave. They didn't entertain any idea of Yusuf being a minister, so they thought it was another minister. So they heard of him and they had to go there. So actually, I have some quotes here which I'd like to share with you. Always turn a negative situation into a positive situation. We learn this a lot in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Turn a negative situation into a positive situation. And actually, there are some books which talk about self-improvement, and they give a story. If you've read a book entitled it's by Shiv Hera. I forgot the title. In his book, he says that two brothers from the same father were affected by the father in different ways. Two brothers were affected by their father in different ways. So one of them was successful, and another one was a complete failure. And both of them, when they were asked, they said, "Our father was the reason why we are who we are." So the one who was successful said, "My father was not working hard. He was a drunk person. He was lazy. He mistreated my mother. So I wanted to work hard, not to be like him, to be different from him." So his father is a negative person, he's a failure. So the son says, "I don't want to be like my father." So his motivation to be successful is his father. The other one was a failure. He said, I did like my father. He was not a responsible person. So one person, one situation could be a motivation for two people who would trek different paths. So it depends. Don't blame the situation, blame yourself. How do you react in such a situation? So another one he says, unless you have bad times, you can't appreciate the good times. Unless you have bad times, you can't appreciate the good times. Actually, the book I was talking about is called You Can Win. It's called You Can Win. And actually, it's almost about attitude. And another story that the author talks about, he said in Europe somewhere, someone had a stall of making sausages. He called them hot dogs, so sausages. And because this man didn't have any degree, didn't have any education, but his attitude was good. So if someone wanted to buy from him, he would cheer the person, talk to him, make jokes, smile. So people loved him. So his business grew, and he was planning to rent another stall to sell sausages. So his son graduated from a university with a degree in business administration. So the first thing that his son told him, the first day he works with his father, that there is a financial crisis that's going to hit our country. So you have to be careful. The father asks, "What is the financial crisis?" The son says, "People will not have enough money to buy from you." Now the man who was planning to rent another stall, he minimized his goods and his attitude changed. Finally, he lost customers. Now the question is, was it before because of the financial crisis or because of his change of attitude? Change of attitude. So it's very important. Don't change your attitude. So they took with them, the brothers of Yusuf, some merchandise from their land in order to exchange it for food. Actually, although Yusuf wanted to help people, but it wasn't for free. So you bring some merchandise from your area, then he would give you foodstuffs. So you would exchange a little for many, many more. Why did it so happen? Why didn't just he give them everything for free? Why did you have to bring something little to get more? Does anyone know? That if you give someone something for free, he wants to value it. They want to value something given to them for free. So he wanted them to come with something so that they would value the provisions that he gave them, and they would be economical. Because had they gotten them for free, they would squander them. That's one. Two, why? So why did they have to bring some merchandise to exchange them for food? Yes.
It would keep the people in the country happy as well.
Yeah, it would keep the people of the country happy as well because it was a barter system. So some people would bring like clothes, shoes, coins. So they're benefiting this community, and they are also they also benefit because if they were given things for free, the people of Egypt would start complaining. Why is Yusuf giving everything for free? But when they brought in something that they also needed, this would make them happy. What else?
Keeps the economy moving.
Yeah, to keep the economy moving. So he's teaching us the importance of keeping the economy moving. And actually, it's like what they say: give teach someone how to fish and don't give him a fish. Because if you give him a fish, he will eat it today, it will finish, so tomorrow, from where will he get another fish? But if you teach him how to fish, he will have the fish today, tomorrow, and after tomorrow. So he also wanted them to work hard. Although they were in tough times, he wanted them to go and work hard and find something to bring, which they can exchange for food and some other items which they didn't have in their land. And actually, this is to prove that in the world we complement one another. So a country can't be independent of other country. A group of people can't be independent of others. We all need one another. And this is mentioned in the Quran. We need one another. So this is to emphasize the issue that we as human beings, we need one another. So you can't claim to be independent of others, look down upon others. So Yusuf was teaching us a lesson that we have to try as much as we can to benefit from one another and treat each other with respect. So how many were the brothers of Yusuf? Actually, we will be discussing this inshallah next time, where we'll be talking about them, how many they were, how did Yusuf receive them, what did he do to them, how did they go back. So this will be the topic of next week. And actually, we have Yusuf here. We're talking about Prophet Yusuf. We have Yusuf here. I don't know. Are you ready to share the hadith with us? Okay. Last week he shared the hadith with us, but today maybe he's sick. So, any questions about this issue? About the story of Yusuf alayhi salam? Any questions or comments?
When they were having the one meal a day, how long was this for? Like for how many years, or is it just for like?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Does anyone know the answer? 1 meal a day for how long? It was for 1 year.
It's like how long can a person eat one meal a day for and stay healthy?
Okay.
Their body's affected.
Do you have any doctors here, dietitians here?
I was just wondering. It wasn't for the 7 years, it was for the 1 year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I think, I'm not an expert, but I think if you have a healthy, good meal once a day, you can live in forever. Right? Healthy, good meal. And actually, this doesn't mean they were not snacking. Maybe they were snacking. They had some simple snacking, snacks that they were eating. For example, the Prophet ﷺ would stay for a month eating dates and water, Zamzam water. And now, when you read in science the value of dates, the value of Zamzam water, they have a lot of nutrients. They are very healthy. So he would stay for a months with only Zamzam and water. And actually, they call them al-aswadain. And he was healthy and strong. So I think if we get a good meal, which is nutritious, it can sustain you for a long period of time. But what we can't stay without is water.
In that life, who was first, Yusuf or Musa? Like
Yusuf, actually, after we finish talking about Yusuf, then we'll talk about Musa. So Yusuf came before Musa. Yeah. So the next, after we finish Yusuf, we'll be talking about Musa. And somehow they are related. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Where did he learn all the languages from?
Yeah, maybe in the prison. Yeah, in the prison. And actually, you know what? When he was in the prison at the beginning, they were teasing him because he was not among them. Yeah, he was from Canaan, and there were Coptics in the prison. So he was trying his best to serve them, to help them. So in the process, he was learning from them the languages because he was keen to learn from them. He was keen to comfort them. As we said before, if someone was ill, he would try to treat him and comfort him. If someone was distressed, he would comfort him. So, and you need language in order to communicate with those people. So he would always learn with them, learn from them. Yeah, and actually that was that life in prison was a preparation for him to hold a high position knowing so many languages. It's like those of us who were in hostels at university and we met people from different countries, we learned some words from their languages. Yes, brother.
You know, one important point here is how you transformed from really low level in society
Yes.
to extreme heights.
Yes, yes.
Whereas all the time to maintain his faith in Allah.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, so it doesn't mean that if you get wealth,
Mm-hmm.
that the person is necessarily going to be arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
Can still be a good servant,
Yes.
faithful servant of
Yes.
Allah. And the wealth, Allah gives wealth to
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
It benefits them and others.
Yeah.
Whereas for other people, wealth can be harmful.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, we could say he was promoted from grass to grace, so to speak, and this taught him a lot of lessons, a lot of experience, and it gave him confidence. So when he was ruling, he knew where he came from. Not like a person who is brought from nowhere and then being imposed on you, he doesn't know what he's doing. So Yusuf had suffered and he didn't want others to suffer like him. So this means also he wasn't selfish because others would say, I suffered, let them also suffer. But this is again part of ihsan. Because you suffered, you don't want another person to suffer. So you are working so hard to avoid another person to suffer as you did. It's like, for example, when you sit with your children, you tell them, you give them the story of your life, how you suffered. The aim is you're not being arrogant or you're not being proud. You're trying to give them a shortcut in life. So what happened to me, I don't want it to happen to you. So don't be like this. You have to be, but they don't listen. So you're giving them a shortcut, but they don't listen. Finally, they will end up following the same route, a long, long road, a long path to growth. But if they listen to you, this shortcut will help them a lot. So this life of Yusuf, challenging life, gave him self-confidence, authority, and made him a better person. So working for the benefit of the others. He didn't want others to suffer like he did. And this is one of the reasons Allah told him he's muhsin, and Allah does not allow anyone who does good deeds with good intentions to lose his reward. And the reward of Allah comes in so many ways. So it's cause and effect. When you do good things, you get rewarded here, and the biggest reward awaits you on the day of judgment. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Jazakumullah khair. See you inshallah on Monday when we'll be discussing Surah Al-Munafiqun, one of the interesting surahs which talks about the hypocrites and differences and the types of nifaq. So see you inshallah on Monday.